12 years is a long time to love someone. It's long enough to learn the sound of their footsteps in the hallway and know whether they're tired before they say a single word. Long enough to recognize the shape of their silence, the kind that means, "I'm thinking," versus the kind that means, "I'm hurting." Long enough to forget what life felt like before them. They weren't the loud kind of couple. No screaming matches, no broken phones, no dramatic walkouts at 2 a.m. If anything, their relationship was built on something almost suspiciously stable. When people asked how they were doing, the answer was always the same. Good. We're good. And it wasn't a lie. They truly did get along. They laughed at the same stupid shows. They had little rituals, coffee in the morning, a quick kiss before work, shared grocery runs where they argued about nothing more serious than what brand of pasta to buy. Their sex life was healthy, even after all this time. Not a performance, not something they forced to keep alive, but something that still felt natural, affectionate, private. They had decent jobs, decent money, a normal life. A life that looked settled. And for years, marriage lived inside their relationship like a familiar joke. They'd be at a wedding and she'd nudge him with her shoulder and whisper, "Take notes." They'd pass a jewelry store and he'd fake a dramatic sigh. "Maybe someday I'll recover from the emotional damage of ring prices." Sometimes they'd talk about it seriously too, late at night, in bed, when the world got quiet. "We will," she would say, "just not yet." "Not until we're stable," he agreed. "Not until we're ready." That was their phrase, ready. Ready meant finished with school. Ready meant stable jobs. Ready meant a home that wasn't rented, temporary, replaceable. Ready meant not living in constant exhaustion. For a long time, Ready felt like a distant country neither of them could afford to visit. Her schedule was brutal. Residency. Long hours. A brain always half asleep, half on call. They often worked opposite shifts like two people passing each other in the same house. He'd come home as she left. He'd eat dinner alone, then reheat something for her when she stumbled in at midnight. Eyes hollow, smile forced. They didn't fight, but sometimes they didn't talk much either. Not because they didn't care, because life was loud. And so they made a plan together. A logical plan. The kind that makes sense when you say it out loud. "Once we settle down," she said, "then we'll take the next step." "And kids?" he asked once carefully, like he was touching a fragile object. She smiled, tired but warm. "After we're settled." Same timeline, next step. It became a shared belief. The next step would come naturally once the conditions were right. And then, finally, the conditions became right. They bought a house a year and a half ago. It was the biggest thing they'd ever done together. The first time they walked through it, it smelled like fresh paint and possibility. They stood in the living room surrounded by empty space, their voices echoing, and she spun in a slow circle like she couldn't quite believe it. "This is ours," she whispered. He watched her, and something in his chest tightened. Not pain, exactly, but a kind of deep recognition. This is what we've been building toward. The commute disappeared. Their schedules normalized. Evenings stopped being survival and started being life again. They signed up for dance classes and laughed when they stepped on each other's feet. They tried cooking classes and burned things and didn't care. They had time to eat together, to talk, to sit on the couch and simply exist in the same room without collapsing from exhaustion. For the first time in years, he looked at them and thought, "We made it." And once he thought that, he couldn't stop thinking about the question he'd been holding back for so long. Not because he doubted her, because he didn't want the timing to be wrong. He didn't want to ask when she was stressed or tired or overwhelmed. He didn't want marriage to feel like another responsibility dumped on top of her already heavy life. But now she laughed more. Now she had energy again. Now she talked about the future like it was real and close, not theoretical. And he started to picture it vividly, not someday, but soon. He began to notice things he'd never really noticed before. How she folded laundry with a focused seriousness, tongue slightly pressed against her teeth. How she hummed when she read. How she reached for his hand in public without thinking, like a reflex. How her eyes softened when she looked at children in the park, not longing exactly, but something that made him think, she's imagining it. He told himself he was being patient, but the truth was more uncomfortable. He was building pressure inside his own silence, because in his mind, the next step was no longer an abstract promise. It was the only thing left. And the longer he waited, the more he feared something darker. What if I'm the only one still moving forward? He didn't say that to her. He didn't want to create doubt where none existed. He didn't want to sound insecure. He didn't want to be the guy who forced a timeline. So he planned. Quietly. Carefully. Like someone setting up a surprise party for the person they love most. Their 12-year anniversary was coming up, and she suggested something simple. Let's unplug, she said. No phones, no work, just us. Like when we first started dating. Camping, hiking, old memories. He smiled and agreed, but inside, something clicked into place. Because he remembered the beginning, too. And he knew exactly where he wanted to take her. The place mattered more than he wanted to admit. He didn't tell anyone where they were going. Not friends, not family, not even her best friend. It felt private, almost sacred, like saying it out loud would dilute the meaning. This wasn't just a camping trip. It was a return. They packed like they always did, efficiently, almost automatically. Years of shared life had turned sure things into muscle memory. Who grabbed the tent poles? Who packed the food? Who always forgot the flashlight until the last minute? It wasn't until they were already on the road that she noticed. She stared out the window for a long moment, brows slowly knitting together, her gaze lingering on a familiar bend in the road. Then she turned to him, eyes widening. Wait! Her voice caught. Is this? He didn't answer right away. He just smiled. Her reaction was instant and unfiltered. She laughed, then covered her mouth, then laughed again like she was embarrassed by how emotional she suddenly felt. Oh my God, she said. You didn't. She grabbed his arm, squeezing it hard. This is where we met. The way she said it, not as a fact, but as a memory, sent a rush through him. She started talking all at once, recalling details he'd forgotten. The weather that day, the stupid joke he'd made, how she almost didn't show up. You're so romantic, she said, shaking her head. I can't believe you remembered. He felt a quiet triumph settle in his chest. She's happy, she's present, she's with me. If there was ever a sign, this was it. The hike was long but easy, the kind that gives your thoughts space to wander. They talked about everything and nothing. Old friends, inside jokes, plans for the house, trips they still wanted to take. At one point, she reached back without looking and took his hand, pulling him forward up the trail. That small gesture meant more to him than she could ever know. By the time they reached the campsite, the sun was already dipping low, the light warm and golden. They worked together, setting everything up, moving in that familiar rhythm that only long-term couples have. No instructions, no questions, just silent cooperation. The fire crackled to life as the sky darkened. Everything felt aligned. Too aligned to be coincidence. He had rehearsed the moment in his head 100 times. The words weren't flashy. He didn't want a speech. He wanted honesty, simplicity, the kind of proposal that didn't feel like a performance. He waited until the fire burned low and the night grew quiet. The kind of quiet where even your own heartbeat feels loud. He stood. She looked up at him, curious, smiling softly. Not surprised. Almost expectant. And in that instant, his last doubt disappeared. This is it. This is the story we'll tell someday. He got down on one knee. Her smile froze. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't sudden. It was subtle, like watching warmth drain from a room you didn't realize was fragile. He asked anyway. He asked because he believed the answer was already written in 12 years of shared life. The silence that followed was wrong. Not thoughtful. Not emotional. Just empty. She stared at him, eyes glossy, breathing shallow. For a second, he wondered if she was going to laugh, to cry, to say something. Anything. Instead, her lips parted, and she whispered, "No." The word didn't land like an explosion. It landed like gravity. Everything dropped at once. His chest, his stomach, the future he had been holding in his hands seconds earlier. He stayed there on one knee longer than he should have, unsure what to do with his body now that the moment had collapsed. The ring felt absurd in his hand, suddenly heavy, suddenly humiliating. She started, then stopped. Her eyes filled. She shook her head as if trying to physically push the moment away. "I'm sorry," she said finally, voice breaking. "I can't." That was all. No explanation, no clarification, no, not yet. No someday. Just a closed door. He stood slowly, every movement deliberate, like he was afraid that if he moved too fast, something else might shatter. They sat there across from each other, the fire between them, the night pressing in from all sides. She didn't look at the ring again. After a long stretch of silence, she stood up. "I'm tired," she said quietly. "I think I need to lie down." She crawled into the tent and turned away from him, her shoulders beginning to shake. He stayed outside, listening. The sound of someone you love crying, not loudly, not theatrically, but the restrained kind that comes from deep inside, does something irreversible to a person. He wanted to follow her, to apologize, to ask what he did wrong, to rewind the last 5 minutes of his life. Instead, he sat there, staring at the dying fire, feeling like he had just stepped into a version of reality he didn't recognize. He didn't sleep. He watched the stars fade into morning light, replaying every second in his head, searching for a mistake that could justify what had happened. Had he misunderstood her all these years? Had he rushed something she wasn't ready for? Or worse, had she been waiting for him to ask, so she could finally admit she didn't want this life at all? In the morning, she emerged from the tent with swollen eyes and a blank expression. "I want to go home," she said. "Not let's talk. Not give me time. Just home." They packed in silence. The 3-hour hike back to the car felt endless. Sometimes they joked, briefly, automatic reflexes from a life built on normalcy. And for a terrifying moment, he wondered if this could all just be forgotten. But then the silence returned. Thicker, heavier, unavoidable. The drive home should have taken 4 hours. It felt like a lifetime. At first, they spoke the way people do after something catastrophic, carefully, politely, pretending that the air between them wasn't charged with something dangerous. They commented on the road, the weather, a stupid sign they passed. Familiar habits reaching for normality like muscle memory. He told himself not to push. Give her time. Let her speak when she's ready. They stopped for coffee halfway home. The barista smiled too brightly. The world kept moving at its usual speed, completely indifferent to the fact that his life had just split in two. They sat across from each other at a small table, steam rising between them like a barrier. He couldn't hold it in anymore. "Do you want to talk about what happened?" he asked quietly. She didn't look up from her cup. "No." One word again. It hurt more than the first time. The rest of the drive passed in near total silence. Not angry silence. Not dramatic silence. Just the kind that fills every corner and leaves no space to breathe. When they got home, he unpacked automatically, folding gear, wiping dirt from shoes, putting things away that now felt strangely pointless. She went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. Then he heard her crying again, this time louder. Raw. He knocked softly. "Please," he said through the door. "Just talk to me." She opened it just enough for him to see her face. Red, exhausted, eyes full of something that scared him. "I need to be alone," she said. "I need time to think. Please don't make this harder." Harder. As if it wasn't already unbearable. The next morning, she told him she was going to see her family, across the country. "I don't know how long," she said, already packing. I can't be here right now." He wanted to ask 1,000 questions. "Are you coming back? Is this about me? Is this about us? Is there someone else?" But he asked none of them. Because for the first time in 12 years, he felt like if he asked the wrong thing, he might lose her completely. He drove her to the airport. They hugged, stiff, awkward, unfamiliar. The kind of hug you give someone you're afraid to hold too tightly. "I love you," he said automatically. She hesitated. "I know," she replied. That was it. 2 weeks passed, then 3. She sent short messages every few days. "I'm okay. I just need more time. I'm safe." Nothing else, no explanations, no timelines. Her best friend started calling him instead. "She's not responding," her friend said. "Have you heard from her?" He hadn't. He checked her Instagram more often than he wanted to admit. Smiling photos, family dinners, a version of her that looked peaceful, even happy. It made him feel insane. How could someone look so fine while he felt like he was dissolving? At night, his thoughts spiraled. He replayed the relationship like evidence in a trial. We never fought. We were good together. We planned this. Then darker thoughts crept in. Maybe we never fought because we avoided things. Maybe getting along wasn't the same as being honest. Maybe she had doubts for years and just never said them out loud. He started noticing absences. The way she had stopped talking about the future in concrete terms. The way she changed the subject when people asked about marriage recently. The way she smiled, but didn't expand into happiness the way she used to. Had he mistaken comfort for certainty? One night, he sat alone in the living room, staring at her laptop on the table. The temptation was overwhelming. 12 years of shared life sat behind a password he probably knew. Emails, messages, notes, thoughts she hadn't shared with him. He didn't open it. Not because he wasn't curious, but because he was terrified of what he might find. Then the call came. Her work. They sounded confused, not angry. "Hi, we're trying to reach her," the HR manager said. "She was scheduled to return this week, but she hasn't shown up. We just wanted to check if everything is okay." He felt something cold slide down his spine. She hadn't told him she extended her leave. She hadn't told work either. That was new. That wasn't like her. After the call, he sat very still. Because for the first time, the problem felt bigger than a proposal. This wasn't just about marriage anymore. This was about someone unraveling, or someone realizing, too late, that the life they built didn't actually belong to them. And the most terrifying thought of all settled in his chest. What if saying no wasn't the beginning of a conversation? What if it was the beginning of an exit? The house had never been this quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet they used to enjoy. Sunday mornings, coffee brewing, soft music playing in the background. This silence was hollow, echoing. Every room felt too big, too empty, like the house itself was waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. He started noticing things he had ignored for years. Her mug still on the shelf, exactly where she always put it. The jacket she left hanging by the door. The indentation on her side of the bed. Each detail felt accusatory, as if the house was asking him questions he couldn't answer. How did you not see this coming? At first, he blamed himself. Maybe he waited too long. Maybe 12 years felt like a sentence instead of a promise. Maybe she thought he stayed out of comfort, not choice. He replayed every conversation about marriage in his head, searching for hidden warnings. She had never said yes explicitly, not really. She had said someday, after we're settled, when things calm down. What if those weren't delays? What if they were escapes? Then another thought followed, darker and harder to dismiss. What if she had already left, emotionally, years ago? He remembered moments that felt harmless at the time. How she sometimes went quiet when friends announced engagements. How she changed the subject when relatives asked, "So when's the wedding?" How she smiled, always smiled, but her eyes didn't light up the way they used to. He had told himself it meant nothing, because believing otherwise would have meant risking the relationship by asking uncomfortable questions. And they didn't fight. They were proud of that. But now, alone in the house, he started to wonder if never fighting had come at a cost. Conflict avoided is still conflict, just quieter. He thought about how easy it had been for both of them to postpone decisions. Life gave them perfect excuses: school, work, money, timing, exhaustion. Each excuse had been real. But together, they had formed something else. a pattern of delay that allowed both of them to avoid asking, "Is this truly what I want?" The proposal had removed all escape routes. It demanded an answer in the present tense, and she had collapsed under it. He imagined what that moment must have felt like from her side. The ring, the expectation, the realization that saying yes would lock in not just a man, but a future, an identity, a version of herself she may never have consciously chosen. Marriage wasn't just commitment, it was finality. It was saying goodbye to every unlived life at once. And maybe, standing there by the fire, she hadn't been rejecting him. Maybe she had been rejecting the fear of disappearing into a role she didn't fully recognize. Still, understanding didn't make the waiting easier. Days blurred together. He stopped sleeping properly. He forgot to eat. Friends told him to give her space or move on, as if either option were simple. He drafted messages to her and deleted them. "I love you. Please talk to me. I'm scared." None of them felt right. One night, unable to stand it anymore, he finally sent something honest. "I'm not asking you to decide anything. I just need to understand what's happening. I love you, and the silence is killing me." He saw that she read it. She didn't respond. That hurt more than an argument ever could have. Because silence, he realized, wasn't neutral. Silence was a decision to leave someone alone with their worst thoughts. The house started to feel less like a shared dream and more like evidence of a life half-built. If she didn't come back, what happened to the house? The memories? The 12 years? He caught himself thinking about logistics, splitting assets, calling lawyers, and hated himself for it. "I'm not ready for this to be over," he thought. "I don't even know if it is over." But the scariest question crept in late at night, when he couldn't distract himself anymore. What if the life I believed in was only real to me? She came back without warning. No long message, no explanation, just a short text sent at 8:17 in the morning. "I'm home. Can we talk tonight?" His hands shook as he read it. For weeks, he had imagined this moment in 100 different ways. Dramatic confrontations, tearful apologies, cold goodbyes. Now that it was real, all of those fantasies dissolved into one simple, unbearable truth. Whatever she was about to say would change everything. She walked into the house that evening looking older somehow. Not physically, but like someone who had aged internally. Her movements were slower, more deliberate, as if she were stepping into a place she no longer felt belonged to her. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they had eaten dinner thousands of times. The same table where they had planned vacations, budgets, renovations. The same table where everything had once felt certain. She stared at her hands for a long time before speaking. "I didn't say no because I don't love you," she said finally. His chest tightened. "I said no because I realized I don't know who I am outside of us." The words hung between them. She explained in fragments at first, sentences that felt unfinished, thoughts she had clearly rehearsed but still struggled to say out loud. She had gone from school to residency to survival mode without ever stopping to ask what she actually wanted. Their relationship had always been there, solid, safe, unquestioned. "And that scared me," she admitted. "Because when you asked, it felt like I was agreeing to a life I never consciously chose. I just continued." She described standing there by the fire, feeling like the ground dropped out from under her. "It wasn't about the ring," she said. "It was about finality, about saying yes and realizing there was no more later to figure myself out." He listened. Really listened. Not to respond, not to argue, just to understand. A part of him felt relief. There was no affair, no hidden betrayal, no secret resentment. Another part felt something worse. Grief. Because loving someone doesn't protect you from growing in different directions. "So what happens now?" he asked quietly. She swallowed. "I don't know," she said. "I know I don't want to lose you, but I also know I can't promise something I'm not ready to live honestly." That was the answer he had been afraid of. Not a breakup, not a yes, but uncertainty. They talked for hours, about fear, about identity, about how easy it is to mistake comfort for clarity, about how they had both avoided hard conversations because things were good enough. She admitted she didn't know if marriage was something she truly wanted or something she assumed she should want. And he admitted something too. That proposal, he said, voice steady but tired, wasn't just about love. It was about needing reassurance that we were still moving forward together. They sat in silence afterward, but this time, it wasn't empty. It was heavy, honest, and fragile. No decisions were made that night. No rings returned. No bags packed. Just two people standing at the edge of a truth they had avoided for 12 years. Love hadn't failed them. Avoidance had. And as they went to bed in separate rooms for the first time in their relationship, he realized something quietly devastating and strangely hopeful at the same time. Sometimes the most romantic thing two people can do is finally tell each other the truth, even if it changes the ending they thought they were promised.